Good afternoon and welcome to another in our series of the Saturday Sports Special. Well, it's a special program indeed. And I want to welcome everyone to our program this afternoon. And I say it's a special program. Normally it's a Saturday Sports Special, but it's part of the TalkSports program. And I want to wish everyone, well, hoping that you are having a wonderful weekend. It's a beautiful weekend here in Brooklyn, New York. And I hope wherever you are, it is also a beautiful weekend. And we continue to say a prayer for our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines who are experiencing the wrath of the Soufrière volcano and all those who have been displaced. Well, our program this afternoon is special because we'll be speaking to someone who is special, someone who actually is on our program for the very first time. You have been hearing a lot about this person, and we want to welcome him to our program. But just before I welcome him to the program, let me just mention something about our guest. He was a top track athlete who gained national and international recognition between 1976 and 1987 for his speed in the sprints. That's the 100 and 200-meter competitions. And as a student at Auburn University, he became a national college athletics, that's association, or we call it NCAA champion, a world record holder, and an Olympic and Pan American gold medalist. But after his retirement, he served as head coach of track and field at Auburn, the University of Alabama, and for numerous U.S. national teams at international competitions. Well, folks, I don't want to go on, reading the entire history. I'll just do the honors of welcoming our special guest on the program and say good afternoon to Mr. Harvey Glance. Good afternoon to you, Harvey Glance.
Good afternoon, Michael. How's everything?
Everything is fine. Everything is fine, and I hope everything is fine on your side as well.
Everything is wonderful. I'm blessed. I got blood running through my veins, and thank God I've been able to avoid being sick in these troubled times. It's a blessing to try to do all the things right, and a pleasure to be on your show.
Okay, I want to thank you for accepting the invitation and being part. We have 2 hours to do quite a lot, and as I said, it's the first time being on our program, and I thank you for accepting. But before I continue, I do want to offer condolences to you. I know that you lost your mom, just recently, and on behalf of all those who have been part of our program, I want to extend condolences to you and family.
I really appreciate that. I'm a mama's boy, and she was always special and always will be special. I've had 63 wonderful years with her, so I'm truly blessed. A lot of people don't get a chance to have that many years with their parents, their mom or dad, and so I've really been blessed. So I'll see her again on the other side.
Okay, then. All right. Well, thank you very much again. And first of all, how things are going in terms of you coping with the pandemic and thing? Have you took your jab already?
Yeah, I tell you, we have been in survival mode, just like the rest of the country and rest of the world. I think I've really got to contribute my training as an athlete, being disciplined and committed and dedicated to the cause. I have been certainly listening to the scientists as to how to go about handling this situation. They're, in my mind, are the coaches, and in our mind as human beings, we're the athletes, and we just got to listen. And one thing I've done is really call back on all those experiences I had as an Olympic athlete, the qualities of being committed, dedicated, and being coachable. So thank God to this particular point, we've been able to stay healthy because we've been good listeners.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the important thing as being a coach. You want to impart, I should say, on your charges of being a very good listener, and no doubt I want to thank you for that. Well, folks, let's get a little introduction of our special guest. So, Harvey, I've given you at least a minute or two to introduce yourself. For those who don't know, Harvey Glance. Who is Harvey Glance?
Well, Harvey Glance, the athlete, has won titles at all different levels. I was AAU Junior Olympic champion. I was college champion. I was high school champion. I was world champion. I was Olympic champion. From an athlete standpoint, I've accomplished a lot. As a coach, I think everyone knows that by now I've coached at both Auburn University as well as the University of Alabama, both in-state and in-state rivals. But when you get into the coaching profession, you kind of get away from trying to be that athlete and you try to be a businessman. and so it made sense for me to leave Auburn to go to Alabama, even though I had about 6 different offers on the table when my time came up, my contract came up at Auburn. I wasn't going to be foolish and lose all those years that I had invested in the state of Alabama. And because of that, I was able to retire from the University of Alabama after 25 years in the state system. As a coach, I've also coached numerous All-Americans, numerous conference champions, Olympians, and of course, my most notable student is your very own Kirani James, who has also achieved some of the same things I've achieved, from world junior status to Olympic and world status. He has done more than I have, really, as an accomplished athlete, and I'm real proud that Kirani James is Olympic and world champion. So that's my accolades as far as coaching. And as a person, I like to consider myself God-fearing. I'm married to a beautiful lady by the name of Dr. Tammy Williams, and this has been a wonderful decade of a relationship. And so when you sum it all up, Michael, I just say I've had a blessed life, and God has been good to me, and I hope He continue to stay that way.
I actually want to say good afternoon also to your wife, who I met, quite a while ago, but and who's looking on, who's watching, I should say. Good afternoon to you, Mrs. Dr. Williams. So yeah, and you mentioned quite a bit, because you said not just a coach, but you also consider yourself a businessman. You also consider yourself various aspects in life. And one of the things I admire about you is, and you probably didn't mention that of a mentor, that of a mentor. And as a matter of fact, I always recall you saying that you also consider yourself as a parent to Kirani away from home.
Yes.
And why you decided to to basically disclose yourself as a parent to Kirani James away from home.
Well, as a coach, it's easy to put a stopwatch on someone. It's easy to yell out times, and it's easy to direct a person around the oval, or down the runway, or put a javelin in their hand, or distance or shot, or jump over barriers. But to me, coaching is more than that. It's being a role model for your kids, and being an example for everyone involved. It's hard for me to tell a kid, do not drink, if they see a drink in my hand. It's hard for me to tell a kid not to smoke if they see a cigarette in my hand, or do drugs if I'm doing drugs. So a coach also has to be an example for the people that they have in front of them. They're trying to mentor. It's not just Kirani, but every athlete that I've ever touched, I've always tried to give them good advice on and off the track. I think that my greatest accomplishment with my student athletes is one that I wanted them to get a degree. That was the number one focus of them coming to college, was to get a degree. They could not run for the rest of their life, or jump for the rest of their life, or throw for the rest of their life. But that degree would set them up, because it's required. It was the number one requirement for getting jobs here in this country and around the world. So that had to be the number one priority. And that's hard for some coaches to do, is to not put that ahead of their own accomplishments. That was the first thing I want to do. So that was a tall order, but it's something that we accomplished because we made a commitment. For athletes who struggled, we got them tutors. For athletes who could do it real well, they did well on their own, but we were always there for them academically. Athletically, everybody's not going to be an Olympian. Everybody's not going to be NCAA champ, and everybody's not going to be a conference champ. But for one thing, that we can all try to get personal best and feel good about where we are with ourselves as individuals. I never worried about athletes when they were in front of me. I often worried about athletes when they were away from me. And I, as a coach, always knew the people who run game. I always knew the people who wasn't committed. I always knew the people that wasn't dedicated, not fully, but I also knew they weren't going to reach their full potential if they didn't do all those things that I just talked about. When I got Kirani, I knew Kirani was special because he practiced the same way I practice. His focus was, goal oriented. He knew where he wanted to be in life. He knew where he wanted to be later in life. And there's a lot of people who can't look past 3 or 4 years, but he could see the future in which he wanted the path to travel. And I could also see his future. And that's what got me excited about coaching him. And also not just coaching him, but also mentoring him. Because, so many people run, their career's over, they go into bankruptcy, they go into depression, they go to all these things. But you always have to have a long-term plan. And I never worried about Kirani on the track, and I don't worry about him away from track. If he say he's going to be somewhere, he's going to be there. If I tell him practice at a certain time, he's going to be there at a certain time. If I worried about whether he's going to go party and drink and smoke drugs and all that, it was never ever a thought that entered my mind that he would do something like that. So the great thing about him, and the reason why he's a champion, is that I trusted him. He trusts me. We have never had not one iota of a disagreement when it comes to workouts, when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to planning for the future. He has obviously been my greatest athlete. He's also been my greatest son away from home, and I'm proud to be a part of his life.
Mm-hmm. And I always meant to ask you, and I think you may have said it a couple of times, that you decided not, even though you had the opportunity, and you had many opportunities, to coach other athletes, and you decided just to stick with Kirani James. Why yes. Coach Harvey Glance? Why?
Well, a lot of times when you get coaches who coach other athletes, the thing that you're getting more than anything else is someone else's philosophy, someone else's strategy, someone else's workouts, and this is always questions. With Kirani, I've had him since he was 17 years old. I never wanted to cloud his mind. I never wanted to do a comparison. The volume of having other athletes, I applaud the ones that do that. But for me, it's just make life so much easier. And I feel like I'm taking away from him if I'm giving back to so many others. Mm. And I do believe that part of his success It's the fact that we can communicate one-on-one. We can focus on each other. I mean, Kirani, as much as he knows me as a coach, he knows me as an individual. And as much as I know him as an athlete, I know him as an individual. And we're able to do great things because of that. And I've never ever lost my drive. I never lost my enthusiasm. I never lost my energy, because all of it has been put on him, that one individual, and not so many others. Some coaches get burned out, and next thing you know, that other athletes suffer because they got too many paws and I should say too many irons in the fire. And but there's some who has balanced it very well, and they've been great at it. And I applaud them for doing that. But for me, it was an individual decision, and I think that decision turned out to be right. Put money over joy, because sometimes money can lead you to do bad things.
Yeah, and for all your experience as an athlete and now as a coach, I think you're in the right position to to talk about these things, because you would have seen athletes come and athletes go, and some would have made the right decision, some would have made the wrong decisions, and you as a coach, not just as a professional, coaching a professional athlete, but also your time as coaching at Alabama as well. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to start off as very early as possible, because I want to go way back, almost 7 years ago, back in Glasgow, Scotland, at the Commonwealth Games, and you made a presentation. I wonder if I should say a presentation. It was basically impromptu, I should say. You had the opportunity to say a few words, and it turned out to be a very inspirational speech, I say, that even 7 years later is still relevant. And I just want you to bear with me, folks, and listen to that part of it. I should say part, because it's in segments. And I want you to listen, and we'll come back and discuss more about it on the other side.
I'd like to to also congratulate Team Grenada. I've been around the program here now for the last 4 years. And I want to let you know that I've seen tremendous strides. I want to encourage all the athletes to understand. There's some people who don't even know me. Okay? Braylon came on and he told me I look like George Foreman. He asked me was I a football coach, coaching Kirani. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about me. I'm a 3-time Olympian. I'm an Olympic gold medalist. I have 7 gold medals in international competition. I've tied the world record twice for 100 meters. I majored, I don't know if people even know this, but I majored in human and health performance. The study of muscle movements, the whole 9 yards. Pretty well educated when it comes to track. When you see Kirani do the things he do, it's not because of me. It's because of him. It's because I have a passion and a knowledge for what I do. He has that same drive and passion that makes us a great team. What I'm saying to you in a nutshell is that if you want to reach your highest heights, there's an ingredient. And that ingredient is this: to be an Olympian, a true Olympian, dedication, commitment, sacrifices, willingness, and an unbelievable focus to keep people out of your life that don't need to be in it. tell you to in the United States of America, where I come from, in which a lot of countries hate because of arrogance, because of success and everything else. Anytime you do something big, understand this: everybody's not for you. You may think, they may laugh, they may smile, they do this. Everybody's not for you. Everybody, I mean, it's amazing how people will pull at you and grab at you and pull you down because of success. True. Kirani did an interview this morning, and the guy was like, well, just want to make sure that is that all right? Are we asking too much? Is it not? How do you handle demands that comes along with being successful? And he said, it just comes with the territory. That's true. But here's more than anything else. Here's the truth. If you don't want the success, stop being successful. Nobody will talk to you. You want success. You want achievement. You want dedication because it pays off. A lot of people don't know my bio, but I've coached NCAA champs. I've coached Olympians. I've coached Olympic champions. I've coached conference champions. I've coached high school champions. I've coached junior college champions. Because I'm dedicated. The same principles I took as an athlete, I take as a coach. I don't tell him to be somewhere unless I'm going to be somewhere. I don't say to him, let's be practicing at 4 o'clock. Well, I got to go play some golf, then I'll see you a little later on. If I say practice at 4 o'clock, I'm there at 4 o'clock. Anything come that to me, communication-wise, he knows about it. He makes all the right choices to be a champion. Don't come easy.
So, Coach, how relevant are all these things today? The dedication, the commitment, the willingness, keeping people out of your space who don't belong to your space. How much is that relevant?
Well, Michael, everything I talked about was basically from my heart. It's how I felt as a former athlete. It's how I felt as a coach, and it's how I feel as an individual. It's still important today. Those standards and those morals and those values are still important today as they were back then. And that goes in any profession and any walks of life. You got to be careful who you let into your space. You got to put yourself around positive people. You know right from wrong. It's just a matter of whether you're going to act on it. You got to have something that checks you when temptation comes on board. You got to, for me as an example, my number one thing in life was to never bring shame on the Glance name. And the only way I could do that was to do something stupid. So my mom and dad was always in the back of my mind. And the fact that they had worked hard to raise me, to be a good person, to be a good brother, to be a good sister. Not a good sister, but be good to my sisters. Be good to people. And if I go out and shame that name, then I felt like I've let them down. So my mom and dad was always, anytime, and they don't believe me, there was a lot of temptation out there. And still is. But I will never, ever put my reputation or my family reputation and the name on the line because of selfishness. I always want to be around positive people. If you ever been around me and people have ever seen me in action, I get energy from other people. It's like sunshine. Every day I get up and I see sunshine, I feel revitalized. Well, by the same token, when the sun is not shining, I feel like I got a little less energy than I have than when the sun is out. So when I'm around positive people, that's sunshine. When I'm around negative people, it's a cloud. And I do not like clouds over my head. We are old enough as adults, as teenagers, as old people to know right from wrong. Again, it's just a matter of whether we act on it. I remember that speech very well, like it was yesterday. And I remember talking to the people in that room like it was yesterday. And it was amazing. I can just off the top of my head, 4 of those athletes in that room, including my own very own Kirani James, after 2014, went on to do some pretty good things. Braylon Taplin, who was in that room, who really was just there getting his first, foot wet in international competition, went on to be an Olympic finalist in Rio and finished 6th. Kurt and his brother were the Catholics. And there was a big story surrounding that game, the Commonwealth game, about the 2 brothers competing against each other. Well, those 2 guys now are top 10 decathletes in the world. So I got to believe, and of course, Kirani went on in 2016 to get the silver medal. And other athletes got better. And I got to believe that that speech that I gave, people were listening. And they went back home and they practiced all those things. Or you would not be able to achieve the kind of success they got around. So whether it was a coach that was positive for them, whether it was friends that were positive for them, whether it was their former athletes, mentors around them that made them better, they went on to greater heights. And they're still active today. So the speeches that I give is always from the heart. And I can truly and honestly tell you, a lot of times when I open my mouth, when I'm speaking to a group, I really don't know what's going to come out. It just does. Because whatever comes out of my mouth is the truth. And it's what I feel, and it's what I feel today.
Okay. Well, I agree with you in terms of the guys and girls were listening. And if you indulge with me one more time, I'll give you just a second of 2 parts. And I think this is the part where I thought the folks were really digging into, and probably that is what I believe inspired most of those participants, because remember, it wasn't just the track and field athletes. We also had the boxers, we had the swimmers.
Yes.
And, so it wasn't just track and field. There were the swimmers and the boxers as well.
Let me tell you my proudest moment.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
As a coach, my proudest moment of Kirani is when he was down a year ago. I've taught him to embrace every situation. When he first started in Eugene, Oregon, he was sitting over in the corner. He knew that he had allowed a lot of disappointment, not just to himself, to a lot of other people. I walked over to him, I said, give me a hug. I said, now, listen to this. You made a mistake. We learned from that mistake. But more importantly, if I'm going to be mad about something, this is what I'm going to be mad about. You don't ever beat yourself. That's what we learned from that. He embraced it. He faced the media. He talked about it. It was gone. Same thing in Moscow a year ago. When he fell on his face for a lot of people had no idea he didn't feel 100%. I reminded Michael Johnson that last night. I said, 1993, you took your behind around that curve for 150 meters and dropped out. You had a built-in excuse for everybody to hear and everybody to talk on. I said, he finished the race. And because he finished that race, he got exposed. But nobody called me or him to find out what happened. You knew it wasn't him. He's never finished that way as long as you see him run. But you know what? People want to believe what they want to believe. They want to believe that he was out. They want to believe that he was stricken. They want to demoralize his intensity. To say he can't handle the pressure. He went out too fast. That's a bull crap. What he did, and then we talked about it, said, we're going to Zurich. We're going to get back up. We're going back to fight. I know you may not be where you need to be, but you need to let yourself know, you need to let the world know that you ain't going nowhere. And he came back and ran 44.3 and took Merrick to the wire and beat all other guys that met him.
Yeah. So I thought that segment, that part in particular, where you use the disappointment, of Kirani, and showing that how you embrace disappointment, and I thought it drove the point home, because at the time, remember, we had the swimmers who would have already competed, and some of them didn't even go past the first round. So you are driving home the point that, there are times you will be disappointed, you will not win, but it's how you embrace those disappointments and how you take those disappointments into positives. And as you said, from Oregon, you move on to, to Zurich, and it was a big turnaround.
Yes. Well, I apologize. I did not get a chance to see most of the video because it kept pausing. I can't tell you what the rest of the audience saw, but on my end, I could not follow. It kept sticking. So, but I do remember again the moment, and I talked about Kirani bouncing back. He had an illness that really hurt him in Moscow, and he came back very, very strong. 1 week later, in an international meet, and I got kind of upset because Kirani in my mind was a proven champion, and he had won the World Championships in 2011. He had won the Olympic Games in 2012. And then he has a bad championship in 2013 because of illness, and they were questioning his ability. Well, he came back again and won the Commonwealth game in 2014. And then in 2015, he went to the World Championships and he medaled again. And then he went to the Olympic Games and he medaled again. So, yeah, people can bury you in a heartbeat. It is how you feel about yourself. But I do also know that in many, many cases, Michael, that as individuals, we're gifted with God-given talent in all different areas. And I do know this, we may leave our talent, but our talent never really leaves us. And so I was never worried after the World Championships because I was there. I knew Kirani makeup. I knew he hated to lose. And I also know that no one was more disappointed probably than Kirani James. We were probably two most disappointed people in the entire world because we knew how hard he had worked to get to that point, and we know what kind of shape he was in. But you're going to experience some things, some ups and downs in life. And when you do that, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up. Some people fall down one time and they never get up again. That is not Kirani's makeup. That is not my makeup. And as I pointed out to you before, I take this very, very personal. I can't tell Kirani to do something that I wouldn't do. So for every race that he has run, and I can truthfully and honestly say this, I run it with him. For every emotional that he has a high, I felt that with him as well. So, but we've had very few disappointing moments. And I thank God for that, because he has really, really put in the body of work that's required to be a champion. And we're doing that right now today. He's battling back from grave disease. You know, he lost his mom a year ago. And I lost my mom this year. But we're still smiling, and we're still moving forward, and we're still positive, and we're still pretty much banking on the fact that we're going to have success, or we wouldn't be doing it. So for every day that we get out and we continue to move forward, it's what drives us. It drives him to be the best at 400 meters. It drives me to be the best coach that I can be for Kirani James. And we're going to have doubters. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I once had a teacher tell me that when I wrote a paper about being in the Olympics at 17 years old in my high school, I was called up to the front of the room and embarrassed in front of all my classmates. Pretty much basically said, let's be realistic about your dreams. And basically tore the paper up in front of myself and my classmates. And I can remember walking out of that room that day, angry, disappointed, but driven more than ever to try to prove that person wrong. And I did. Not only did I do it one time, but I did it 3 times. And you can tell it still bothers me today, because I'm talking about it. I'm 60-some years old. And I'm talking about it right now like it was yesterday. He motivated me more than you'll ever know.
And speaking about Kirani and maintaining that focus, Coach, how much was a challenge, especially during the pandemic, to keep Kirani focused, to keep him in shape? You know, especially with all these, eventualities. There were so many uncertainties whether or not we'll reach to this stage where there's a possibility of the Olympic Games, for example. How much was it a challenge to keep your charge in focus?
Well, you know, that one great thing about me being Kirani's coach is that I can fall back on many, many experiences. And almost every walk of his life. There's not probably anything Kirani is going to go through as an athlete or a person that I haven't gone through as an athlete or a person. And I say that because if you remember 1980, we were very uncertain as to what was going to happen in 1980. And I was able to draw back on a lot of those experiences and made them understand that irregardless, we got to be ready just in case. And I was in prime shape in 1980, even though there was all these things in the air, on TV, in articles about whether we would or would not. There was so much uncertainty as to whether the games would continue. But I remember going into my room in 1980, and I said to myself, you got to be ready if your number is called. If they say, we're going to stage a team and we're going to Moscow, the last thing on earth I want to do was to enter the competition out of shape. And we stayed motivated. We stayed driven. I was just as hungry not going to the games as I were going to the games. If the president had changed his mind and say, okay, this has all been political, we're changing our mind, I trained every day like we were going to the Olympics, because I had to be sure. And that's what we've done with Kirani. Even though 2020 didn't happen, if it had happened, we were prepared. And that's what we've done all this time. And now that 2021 is around the corner and now COVID has entered the picture, we've done everything we possibly can to try to stay ready. We run on streets. We run on fields. We run on tracks. He has used my neighbor's weight room. He has used his facility in his townhome complex to lift weights. We have done everything that we possibly can to try to stay ready. And basically what we are and have been for the last year and a half is in survival mode, like every other person in this world. And he's done a good job of doing that. So we've given ourselves the best chance at competing at a high level as we possibly can. We have put the work in. Thank God for the last month or two, we've been able to get in one facility and been able to be on it consistently, although we will leave the track sometimes and go to the fields because high school may have track meets and things of that nature we can't get on. But you can rest assured that the championship spirit of Harvey Glance and Kirani James have not changed one iota. We expect to go and have a very successful season, which will start next week here in Arizona. And hopefully by the time we get to the games, we plan on having some good things happen there as well. So we're motivated. It's been a challenge, but it's been a challenge from everyone. And we hope that our preparation and our desire to be the best will rear its now ugly head.
Mm-hmm. So Kirani opens his season next weekend, as you indicated. What it is like in terms of competition for the rest of the season? Has anything been finalized apart from next weekend?
Well, we're good, I think, right now through to the end of May. We plan on running a meet here at Grand Canyon University here in Phoenix on next Saturday, and then we'll go to Ostrava, Czechoslovakia in the middle of May, and at the end of May we'll compete in Doha, and this is not untypical of our season going into major championships. You know, we usually run about 5 or 6 meets prior to the Olympics or World Championships. We're starting off pretty much where we normally start at the end of April. But usually it was at the Drake Relays. But because of COVID and things of that nature, they don't have that event there. And it's been a challenge as far as having track meets this year. There's a lot of collegiate meets that are not allowing international athletes to compete. There have been international meets that are not allowing collegiates to compete. But they're very far in between. Here in America, most of the facilities, with the exception of maybe a few, they have a few training centers around the country. But probably about 90 to 95% of all track and field facilities are in high school and colleges. So that's what's been the biggest challenge for us is making sure that we have a time slot. We can't train in the morning because of the shootings that have happened in so many high schools. They have basically closed down any visitors on campus. Then we have to wait till school is out. So we have had all kinds of challenges ahead of us as far as training, but again, we hold our head high. We do the best we possibly can, and we adapt, and that's what champions do.
Well, very much so. And I believe we may have some questions for you on the, from the folks who are looking on, but let me just get two comments on the board here. One says, I appreciate a coach who is more than a coach on the field. Coaches who are mentors and role models always get the absolute best from their athletes. And the character of an authentic / true coach is one who is not only interested in winning, but one who teaches his students to accept failures. Indeed, and I think it's similar to what you have been advocating. And
well, that is a very, very good observation from that individual or individuals. I'll give you an example of that very, very comment. We was at Prefontaine in Eugene, Oregon for a Nike meet. And I can remember Kirani in his early years, probably his maybe first year going pro. He runs in the 400 meters and he false starts. But he ran up under protest and he ran extremely well. We knew he was in shape. We knew he's ready to run fast. And after that race, I went looking for him. And all the athletes knew that I coached Kirani James. And they were like, Coach, are you looking for Kirani? I said, yeah. Where is he? Have you seen him? Usually he's here warming down. They said, he's over in that corner. And he was kind of hidden away, isolated. And I went over to him and I found him, and he had his head down in his hands. And I could tell he was, one, embarrassed, because one of the things that I taught in college, one of my rules for false starting was, if you false start, you would run 2 miles. And I said, you're either going to be a sprinter or you're going to be a distance runner, but you will not false start. And I walk over to him. He looks up at me. I said, look me in my eyes. And he did, with embarrassment, because he knew how I taught and he knew how important that was. A false start to me, especially now with international rules. And one of the things I've always said, and you heard me say it in that speech, you don't beat yourself. I told Kirani, I said, those guys never had to run one step before they had defeated you. And I said, but we make no excuses. We take this as experience. It's a learning experience. But one thing we're not going to do is make excuses. And we're going to wrap our arms around this and we're going to accept it. But the moment you start making excuses saying, I heard noise in the stands, or I heard a camera click, or I heard this, that, and that, or I wasn't ready, you're only prolonging what may happen the next time. So we basically wrapped our arms around that, accepted it, and he has never false started again. So that's how you grow. And sometimes they can be embarrassing. Sometimes they can be not positive, but everything that comes towards you is teachable moment. We learn from it and we grow from it.
Yes, very much, and well said. And as I look at this was actually a photo from the great speech, as I would say. And as you see, the Kirani and the Kurt and Linden and Braylon and Peyton Hazard, and there's Sherbin, and there's the boxer,
Yes.
the whole works, the athletes, they were actually taken in the presentation. And as I said, that was 2014, August of 2014 in Glasgow, Scotland, at the Commonwealth Games. you know.
Well,
and,
look at the eyes. Look at the eyes of Kirani and Lyndon, and Braylon. Look
and
at them.
Braylon. Yeah.
Look
And
at
there was
those eyes.
also, and there was Rondell was also there. He was somewhere at the back, you know.
Yeah.
And this was your good friend Michael Johnson. I think it was after the scolding, you know. I think that was in the BBC studio, if I recall. I was with you all at the BBC studio. There was this like a town hall, which was part of this, you know, where Kirani and Michael and there was the athlete from, I think was from Nigeria, you know, participated in that. And then here it was with the interview, you know, so they into the archives.
Well, yeah, and let me go on record as saying Michael Johnson is one of the greatest athletes that ever put on spikes. And I had nothing but the utmost respect for Michael. Matter of fact, Michael was on one of the teams that I coached. And I know that he does a wonderful job of commentary. You know, he tried to be fair and he tried to do all these things. But at that time he got up under my skin because, again, and it was no fault of his. He was just doing his job, and he thought that Kirani probably should be better than what he performed. And that's a dangerous position to be in when you're being, you know, and hindsight is also 2020. You know, it's easy to when a performance is over to have those kind of comments. But if he said those comments prior to Kirani running, I probably would have had a little bit more respect. But it was after the fact, and you know, you can, if you're telling me that you think I can run 9.9 for 100 meters, and then I go out and run 10.5, and you tell me how disappointed you are in me without really knowing anything. But if I go out and run 9.9 and do that, then you can also make yourself look good by saying, okay, I said that, he lived up to it, now this and that and that. But Kirani had plenty of opportunities prior to that to show his consistency, to show that he was good, to show that he belonged, and he just got beat up, and that didn't sit well with me because I knew how well, you know. And Michael had some moments too in his life that weren't always perfect, but no one ever reflected on those moments. So I wanted to make sure that I brought that to his attention. He may not have liked it. He may not agree with it. But at that point in time, you could tell I was pretty emotional. It's the truth. And it came out. But make no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I love him as a person. I loved him as an athlete. And my respect for him will never, ever go away.
Okay. Harvey, do you agree that the 400 meters is much different today than probably as recent as 10 years ago when you started with Kirani James? It has become more competitive. It's now a marquee event, meaning that whereas it was the 100 before, everyone seems to be looking forward to the 400. It appears that the folks like Kirani and others brought something competitive to the 400 meters over the last decade, and it's a must-see event.
No doubt.
What's your take on that?
Kirani James has done more for 400 meters than any other event in track and field. When he went as an 18-year-old to South Korea and won the 400 meters at 18 years old, he gave every young 400-meter runner in the world hope. Because before that, it was just an event where everybody kind of backed off and they allowed the veteran athletes to do their thing. A lot of the younger athletes never felt like they really belonged. They maybe felt like they needed time to mature. But what Kirani did was enlighten every young 400-meter runner in the world. By the time we got to the Olympic Games in London, there had only been 9 athletes that have broken 44 seconds. Kirani became the 10th in London when he ran 43.97. 94, I'm sorry, 43.94. And it lasted from 1960 something to 2012. Well, to give you the sonic boom of 400 meters and how quick it happened, in 2015 at the World Championships in Beijing, 25 athletes in that meet broke 45 seconds. 25. And 44 seconds usually would win competitions anywhere, any place, anyhow. But to have 25 athletes in one competition go up under 45 seconds, to me was just unbelievable. And of course, in the final, all three athletes who medaled in that meet all broke 44 seconds. Van Niekerk, LaShawn Merritt, and Kirani James. And in that same competition, two more athletes broke 44 seconds in the semifinals. So in one competition, you had 5 athletes in that competition go up under 44 seconds. When in 2012, 3 years prior, only 9 had done it in almost 50 years. And now as we speak, in 2021, there are many more who have broken 44 seconds. It is, without a doubt, the ticket to watch, as they did in Rio 5 years ago, and Van Niekerk setting the world record, and Kirani and LaShawn again breaking 44 seconds. It is taken off. And the last year, 2 years ago at the World Championship, 43.4 won it. and it's just an event that you don't know what's going to happen, but there are so many more people now that are running so much faster. And unlike any other event, if you look at how it's taken off, it is without a doubt probably the most improved event in all track and field.
And do you think that we will sooner or later probably see a sub 43? Is it possible?
Well, we can always think that, but until it's done, we can't say it's going to happen. But I will say this, I can guarantee you that's the goal of every 43-point runner that has laced them up, is to be the first to break 43 seconds. That's got to be the goal. If you're not thinking that way, you're going to be left behind.
Mm-hmm. All right, some comments coming in now. Grenada needs the best for Kirani, and we have found that in Coach Glance. We are in full support of you and pray God's blessings on you and Kirani. Grenada got your back. That's Roger Duncan. And John is saying, John Otley, Kirani has more than a coach. He has a life teacher. And Tracy Crawford, who is the mom of Amanda Crawford. Lots of pertinent takeaways from this interview. No excuses. All moments are teachable. I'm thoroughly enjoying this interview. Respect. And Raphael George. Greetings, Coach Harvey. Just saying thank you for nurturing and making Kirani the champ he is, having him bring so much joy to the whole of Grenada. Still remember the joy I felt that day. Again, thank you. And Raphael George always will end with his sobriquet name as Muscles. He's actually a Calypsonian. He's a Calypsonian. Most people will overlook the role you play, but I would love to see you being publicly honored in our country, and then there is Rudian Sylvan, who is based in Toronto, Canada, is saying in the days of Michael, I believe he's referring to Michael Johnson, not Michael Bascom. So now the 400 meters have been a top event in track and field, definitely. So it you know, has been okay. And you know, we talk about 2014, and I want to, you know, bring back some of these things to you because I think it was a moment that sort of fresh in the minds of some people. Yes, we had the Seoul, the World Championships in South Korea, 2011, became world champion. Then we have London, 2012. But then there was something about the Commonwealth Games, because I think it was probably the first time in a long time the Commonwealth Games attracted so many of the quote-unquote top stars, the likes of Kirani James and Usain Bolt and others, to actually compete. You know, they usually, years gone by, the top stars usually shy away from the Commonwealth Games, but somehow 2014 was some sort of special, and it brought something special to Kirani and to Grenada. Let me just go back to that special moment for you.
Well, we now have the presentation ceremony for the men's 400 metres. His Royal Highness, the Earl of Essex, Prince Edward, he will be making the presentation. The Earl of Wessex. And there is Kirani James. 44-24, his gold medal winning run, and surely one of the outstanding performances, if not the outstanding performance of the Commonwealth Games. So, superb performance. Wade van Niekerk took it out. This is Royal Highness the Earl of Wessex. So the bronze medal to be presented shortly. Hazel Kennedy representing Zambia. There is Lalonde Gordon of Trinidad and Tobago. Season's best performance for him, 44.78. Picking up the bronze medal. Two bronze medals he had from London 2012, another one here. And the silver medal goes to Wade van Niekerk, the African record holder and the South African champion, 44.68. Really brave effort from van Niekerk. He took the race out and he headed down the straight to repel the fast finishing Lalonde Gordon and take silver medal. South Africa have had a good day. 2011 he became the youngest ever world champion. He added the Olympic champion all wrong in the World Championships in Moscow last year, but here back to his imperious best, and his time 44.24, a new Commonwealth Games record. Massive star back home in Grenada, and it'll be another night of celebration there. You always feel privileged to watch at close hand sporting greatness, and Kirani James of Grenada is one of the great 400 metres runners of all time, and now he has the Commonwealth gold medal. It was a fabulous run, and one to linger in the memory for a long, long time.
So, you know, many folks will point to the Olympic Games, will point to the World Championships. Personally, I thought the performance of Kirani James at the Commonwealth game, which eventually was considered one of the best performances of the entire Commonwealth Games in 2014. I thought that crowned it off. A lot of people may not have really realized, but when you look at back then with all the papers and all the interviews and things, they considered that performance from Kirani James even over that of Usain Bolt in the 4x100 meters relay and, you know, all that. And I always go down with that as probably one of the best. And that's why I have it. That's why I have it in the archive, because outside of London, you know, yes, I was there, and all these other major championships. I thought the Commonwealth Games, you yourself, you were there, Harvey, and I'm certain you felt something about that in terms of his performance in Scotland 2014.
Yeah, it was epic as far as I was concerned, because remember now that 2014 followed the championship meet of the World Championships in Moscow, and it was very, very important to both of us that he got back on that podium, but more importantly, he got back to the top of the podium, because it would have given us 2011, 2012. And I truly believe, and if he had not gotten sick in 13, it would have gave us an opportunity to be on that podium 4 consecutive times at the top. And again, we made no excuse. We just picked our heads up and we went back to work, and motivated more than ever. And he was running good all year. But when he ran 44.2 in that competition, the weather was not ideal. We were in Scotland. And I can remember looking at the temperature, and I'm not much of a Celsius guy. I'm usually in Fahrenheit. And I always want to know what the temperature is in Fahrenheit. But when they put on the scoreboard what the temperature was when Kirani was getting ready to go around the oval, and I saw 14 degrees Celsius, I couldn't believe it. It was cold. And for a kid to run 44.2 in about 50 to 49 degree weather was just, again, to me, it was just epic. And it made me even more proud, because when he hit the straightaway, I mean, it was like he was running the 100 meters. He was determined, he was enthused, he was driven. And one thing I want all Grenadians to know about their native son is that he wears that uniform with the most pride. If I had a choice of Kirani running in Moscow, because I looked at him the morning, and we used to wake him up in the morning and we'd go do breakfast, and we talk about the competition, and we talk about how he feels and what strategy we're going to use. When I woke up that morning and he looked at me, he said, "I've been up all night." He had a fever. He was not well. If I had a choice, I would not have run him. But I really didn't feel like I had a choice, because he said to me, he said, "Coach, I want to do this for my country." I said, "But Kirani," I said, "it's a risk." And he said, "They will be proud of me no matter what. They'll be proud of the fact that I'm wearing the uniform and I'm representing." That is Kirani James. And I have not shared that story with anybody. This is the first time I've even said this, but that's what the conversation was about. It was never about winning. It was never about being on the podium. It was all about just representing the country. And he also knew that was an important moment for his country. Every time he laced them up, it's pride, it's joy. Now, me, on the other hand, I come from a country that if you're not number one, you're nobody. I mean, you're like, what are you doing? That's the kind of pressure U.S. put on their athletes. It's like, what happened? You're talking to a young man that went to the Olympic Games in Montreal at 19 years old and finished 4th. And when I got back home, it was called Black Sunday. It was like 4th was the worst place that a U.S. athlete could ever finish. You did not medal. So my country, to be quite honestly, was not proud of the fact that I was 4th. But they was proud as heck when I came back a week later and won a gold medal in the relay. It was like the 100 never happened. But Kirani convinced me that his country were proud people. They're going to be proud of him no matter where he finished. And I can honestly and truly say that they have been supportive of him 100%. And that's what keeps him driven. I can't imagine even being here from 300 million people until I watched a young man, a country of 100,000, carry them on his shoulder. And they had every right to be proud because he is very, very special. And I want to thank everybody in Grenada for trusting me with their native and proud son. Because that's not easy. It's not easy to put your faith in someone that you don't know. And someone that's thousands of miles away. But I can honestly say that just like Kirani gave his all, I've given my all. And I will continue to do that. I made a promise to Kirani mom and dad when I came down to visit, and he was 16 and a half years old at the time, just getting ready to turn 17, that I would be that dad away from home if they just trusted me. And they did. So when you ask me the question, why just Kirani? It's just that simple. I made a full commitment to be in his life until he say, Coach, that's it. I'm through. And if I commit to something, you best believe I'm committed to it. So that race in Scotland, the Commonwealth Games, like you said, if you saw Gordon, who was a medalist in London and came back 2 years later, I mean, I think he medaled. I think he medaled even in Moscow. So he went like 3 straight years of medaling.
Yeah.
And Van Niekerk, I mean, that goes without saying what he did from that point on. But it was epic. It was a great race. And Kirani was in top form. And we hope to get back to the point where he's able to handle those rounds. There was so much on his plate in 19 that, you know, with the grave disease and losing his mom, we weren't even sure we were going to even run a world championship. We wasn't sure we didn't know that he did not have the time to qualify for the championship. We go there in Spain and run the meet. And it was just so much on it now, but we've had a year to really prepare and get ready, and hopefully we can get back to form the way he was when he was on top of the world.
Oh well, I wanted to ask you that. What will it take for Kirani to return to the podium, or not so much the podium, but the competitive field, you know? And I asked coach, and no doubt you're the one who is monitoring, who's seen everything. You confident that he will return there?
Yeah, I'm very confident. If one thing I've always been honest with Kirani, and I'll never lie to him. I'll always, if I didn't think he had the tools to get back there, then we wouldn't be doing it. I'm the same coach that said to him after his freshman season, he had a pretty good freshman year at the University of Alabama. You know, he was a conference champ. He was NCAA champ, and he was even voted one of the top 400-meter runners in the world. But I didn't think he was ready. I thought he had to get stronger. I thought he had to be able to handle the atmosphere of going through those call rooms, unlike any other. But I knew one more year of experience and my teaching would benefit him the most. And I made the right call. He didn't come out too early. When he finally hit the scene, he hit the scene smoking, and he hit the scene with confidence and maturity. He is not the same athlete he were in 2010 and 11 as he is in 21. I got to believe he's stronger, he's wiser, he's sharper, and he's still motivated. And if I didn't think that was there, no tools wasn't there, we wouldn't be doing it. But Kirani is ready to do some good things continually. And I think he'll continue to make his country proud.
Okay, let's get some comments on, let's see. Hey, Dr. Tommy Williams, good afternoon to you. She says, cannot let this interview finish without adding, I have watched firsthand the genuine relationship between Harvey and Kirani. It is very special and goes far beyond coach and athlete. Kirani, the quiet giant of an athlete. Harvey, the nurturing giant of a coach. The true dream team. Yes, wife and second mom to Kirani. A little biased, but true. Folks, if you're wondering, that's Dr. Williams, the wife of Coach Glance, and Clev Deputy saying a true champion, and some of the comments coming back. That's Kirani. He knows us well. He is humble. Thank you, Mr. Glance. Coach Harvey, you did well. And thanks for this program, Mr. Bascom. Learned a lot today about our champion and his coach. So, Coach, let's talk about relays. Why it is probably since 2012, I believe. 2012, I think, was the last time, if I'm not mistaken, that Kirani may have competed in a relay. I think it was that the Penn Relays, if I'm not mistaken. Was it the Penn Relays was the last time Kirani competed for Grenada? And it was an effort in vain, I should say, even though he ran a sub 44 in his leg, one of the fastest
43.5, yes,
43.5, one of the fastest one of the fastest legs in the 400 in recent times. I can't recall anyone doing that of recent. Probably at the World Relays, probably they may have done that, but it was a fighting effort from Kirani. Recall that, and since then he has not taken to the field to compete in relays. Any reason why? Is it because of, is it strategic? Is it, what are the reasons? I always ask myself that. I'm always asked that question. And I'm asking you now if you can provide some answers to that. Why it is that Kirani is not competing in the relays?
Well, one, in relays now, because he's away from the collegiate scene, most relays that are run in competition are relays that are run by countries. And we have been so close to putting together a relay team with Grenada. But it's never really panned out when all 4 athletes, or 5 or 6, because you got to have about 5 or 6 athletes at 400 meters to really compete at major championships. Because there's a good chance that Kirani will be running the open 400 meter. There's a good chance that someone else qualifies in the 400 meter like he did, Rondale Bartholomew in 11 and Chaplin in 16 at the Olympics, that one of those guys will be able to run the round, because you can't risk not making the finals. You just don't run a relay just to be running. You want to run a relay to try to medal. And so we've had some great 400 meters runner come out of Grenada. I just named 3 of them. Can you imagine Rondale, Braylon, Kirani, and just one more that could probably run 45 flat, 45-1. You had 3 guys that could probably split 43 seconds or better if they were able to all stay around. Unfortunately, Rondale ran into some injuries from after 2011, and Braylon after 2016, is not around anymore, and Kirani is still there, but we haven't had a lot of 400 meter runners from Grenada just kind of pop up at the same time and within the same cycle. And there's another good 400 meter runner, I think, now at Barton County that's going on. So really the reason why we haven't put together the 4x4 is that it's all timing. It's just people are popping up at the wrong time. And the consistent model in this whole thing has been Kirani. And he's been there, but we've been waiting for the other 3 or 4 athletes to kind of be with him. So the reason why we haven't run relays is because there haven't been relays that we could run at a high level. We can run to get work just as we did at the Penn relays. Now, you talked about that 43 5 relay split that he had at Penn relays. Well, he ran great, and Rondale was on that relay as well, but the overall time was 3:08. Colleges run that.
Yeah. That's probably you might get a high school coming close to that.
Right.
Too. Yeah.
Right. Well, high schools get close to that. I mean, so you got to at least at a major championship be up under 3 minutes. And I just said with those athletes 3 of those athletes I just named, all have been in major championship. They were always missing 1 or 2 that would allow one of the top 2 or 3 400 meter guys to have rest. So it's a formula, but it's also being realistic that if you can't break 3 minutes at a major championship or run right at 3 flat, you're not going to medal.
And you may want to add, as you said, that, as you reference, it's not just 4 athletes now. You have to have at least 6 athletes, At
least 6, yeah. Because you don't want to run your best 400 meter guy just to try to get into the final. Because if you run your best 400 meter guy just to get into the final, you also now have risked that best 400 meter guy not getting up on the podium because he just ran an additional 400 meters. They had to run fast just to get the team into the final. Then he got to come back the next day and run the final. So that's the beauty of all these teams that usually do well at championship. They have depth, and they're able to rest their best athletes until the final. So it will take a little time, but I really think the pedigree is there. I think the athletes themselves are there. They just got to be discovered and they got to be trained up.
Mm-hmm. Well, George Robinson is saying, thanks, Mike, for the question to Coach Harvey. I have been asked that question. He says he has answered the question as the true and honest coach he has been throughout Kirani's career. And Roger has a question. As a coach, mentor, guardian, what will you recommend from us as Grenadians and fans for this comeback kid? Well, Roger, if I may just preempt Coach Glance with one word: patience. Okay, Coach, you can go ahead. You can go ahead now.
And that's greatly stated, because again, in 2016, and if I can take people back, 2016, Kirani got the silver medal at the Olympic Games and ran 43.7, and it wasn't your typical conventional 400 meters. I think personally that he was ready to run 43.5 or 43.4 in that particular competition. Van Niekerk in that race went out in 20.5 and dragged everybody else out in 20.5. It wasn't the fact that I don't think Kirani could handle it. I just think it was a shock to the system. And because no one had ever gone out that fast. The three of them went through the 200 in 20.5. And when they got to the 300 meters, normally where Kirani and LaShawn kind of just started moving up the straightaway, Van Niekerk was on the outside lane and finished in 12 point after running the 300 and pretty much record time, along with Kirani and James. They all had personal bests at 300 meters, and because they went through so fast. But if you remember, he ran 43.7 in spite of that, being uncomfortable, being outside of his zone, and still competed well. Because it could have turned into a disaster if you wasn't mentally and physically tough. Well, in April the following year, about 5-6 months later, that's when we diagnosed Kirani with Graves' disease. And for people who don't know what Graves' disease is, it's something that really robs you of your ability to recover. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. When he ran the race, that very race in Drake, Kirani's worst time at Drake was 44.6. That was his worst race out of the blocks. That race, he ran 46.5. Kirani was the kind of athlete that could run 43 seconds, turn around, shake your hands, do an interview, and walk off the track. That particular race, when he ran 46.5, it took him an hour and a half to get up off the ground. That's when I knew something was wrong. That's when we diagnosed him. I took him to the doctor. They ran the test on him and diagnosed him with his grade. That is the biggest challenge, is recovery. And we've been plugging at it, and he has a endocrinologist now that he sees, that monitor his levels, make sure that he's on track to get back to a certain level where he can compete and not fade. And I will also bring to your attention the World Championships in 19. In all my years of coaching Kirani, he looked so great through 2 rounds. I really thought that he would do amazing things. But that 3rd race caught up with him. And if I'm educating you about that disease, you're following me in the fact that he has a real challenge in recovering. In all my years of coaching Kirani at championships, and he's had nothing but success, it's the only time in my coaching career of him that he ran slower than he ran in the rounds. So I immediately knew that would be the challenge. Gail Devers, who had that disease, recovered from it, but it took her years to get back to a point where she could finish strong and do the rounds. So that's been our biggest challenge up to this point, is to, one, get Kirani levels right, is to get him to a point where he's able to come back day after day after day and do a workout without fading, and recovering. A disease is a disease, and an illness is an illness, and you've got to take it serious. And if you miss steps along the way, you're going to do more damage than you do good. So we've been careful over the last few years. I can honestly say that I see improvement in the most vital thing that this disease caused, which is recovery. We've gotten so much better in that. And I got to believe that the year we had off from the games allowed us to get those levels right and to get him to a point where he can do what he's been doing naturally without having to feel like, he's weak and can't come back the last race. So I'm encouraged. I like what I've seen in practice. I like what I've seen with time. I like his speed. I like his endurance. I'm liking everything I see right now. And that's why I'm excited about next week, hoping and praying that the weather will be conducive and not too windy because he's going around the oval. And we can get a real good starting time, and I can get a good idea as to where he stands right now shape-wise.
So as it is now, Coach, are you now based in Arizona? Yourself and Kirani?
Yeah, we're in Mesa, Arizona. We moved out here a year ago, and part of the reason was to get some consistent weather that sprinters enjoy. A lot of your best sprinters and quarter milers come from warm climates. They either train in California, they train in Arizona, they train in Florida. We were training in Alabama, and sometimes we get a lot of inclement weather in Alabama. So we moved out here. Wife and I bought a home out here. We absolutely adore this state. It's beautiful training weather. He's got now a full-time endocrinologist that is watching him. We'll check his levels. We'll do what we have to do. In Alabama, we didn't have that. We had a man that treated him, but he was more suitable for diabetes. He wasn't suitable for the grave disease. Out here in Arizona, you can throw a rock and hit a hospital within every 5 miles. So unlike Tuscaloosa, it was just one big hospital, and that was it. So we put ourselves in better position to better target his needs, and so hopefully all this will pay off. It's a sacrifice that he has made. I think he loves Arizona. I know he loves the weather because right now it's supposed to be 90 degrees today, so we're happy with that. And it's a positive move. We love Mesa.
Okay, it's all about the the conditions there. There is Cleve Deputy saying concerning Grenada's participation in relay meets. I think Coach Harvey eloquently outlined what is expected for such an event, and not what we think we can do from our emotions. But sadly, those who are not listening will always have the most questions. Coach, what's about indoor competitions? Kirani has not, likewise, Kirani has not competed in indoor from since, was it in Istanbul? Istanbul.
Yes.
Yeah, it was that incident there in Istanbul, I recalled. I've been going around this Coach Harvey Glance and Kirani for so many years that I couldn't almost remember all these things, Yeah, but it was Istanbul when the incident on the track there. And since then, Kirani has not competed in indoor. Why no indoor competition for Kirani James?
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. You've been around me a long time, and you have been at every competition that Kirani's ever competed at. And one, indoors is a little bit different from outdoors. Most of your runners indoors are 5'10", 5'11", and can go around the oval and do it. But Kirani is 6'4". He has a long, fluid stride that a lot of people, when he try to break for 200 meters, they get on top of him. And a classic example of that was at the 2011 NCAA championships. indoors, where he had just run 44.8 and run the third fastest time ever in history. But he did that because everybody else was afraid to go with him. Well, when you go to the NCAA championships and you go through the first 200 and you had to break for the pole, there's a young man named Tabari Henry who decided he wanted to challenge Kirani for the first 200. Although he gave Kirani the post, because Kirani, when he ran the 44.8, had gone through pretty quickly. I mean, he had gone through in like 21:19, and at the NCAA championship, he had gone through the 200 a little bit faster. It was just a tad faster, probably about 21:12 or something like that. And Henry clipped him, and I can remember Kirani hitting the ground at that point in time, and my whole life pretty much went blank at that point in time. Like, what are you doing? And I wasn't questioning Kirani. I was questioning Tabari. And we had that conversation. I was like, what are you doing? You know, Kirani just ran 44.8 and your best is 46.2. Why are you up on him like that? Just get behind, let him drag you. If you get him coming off the turn, fine. But it's like you get caught up in emotion. You're happy to race a guy like Kirani, and the next thing you know, you're in a battle. And outdoors, you run in your own lane. You do what you got to do. You run in your comfort. You don't have to worry about the struggle of fighting somebody, and that's exactly what it becomes. And for people out there who question whether he runs indoors out, I mean, it is a totally different race, and he's a totally different body than most people running indoors. Can he have success? Obviously, he can, but at what risk? And so I watched in 2011 almost his career almost come to an end, because he could have easily tore his hip up or separated his shoulder or anything. I mean, it's very dangerous. And really, indoor times are great. He's proven that he can. I think he can be a world record holder indoors if he really wanted to. But not very seldom do you watch guys run indoors unless they're running for college. And matter of fact, guy who broke the world record indoors, you haven't seen him run indoors. I mean, you do it in college because you're doing it for the team. Very seldom do you see people run indoors. I mean, great 400-meter runners. You see a lot of 400 meters, but great 400-meter runners, very seldom do you see them run indoors because of the risk of injuries.
One comment and then a question. Mike Batiste is saying Grenada can and should work on their stock at home and have them represent in different meets like Pan Ams, etc. A preparation, motivation initiative. And then once that is in place, then the top athletes can come in. We have to start now. And the question here is actually Alana John, who is the mother of Nazio John. Do you see any other Grenadian athlete that you think you can get to the next level, such as Felix in Kansas? I think she's referring to Gamali Felix. I think it's Gamali Felix. I think you made reference to this athlete. Her question: do you see any other Grenadian athlete that you think you can get to the next level, such as Felix in Kansas?
Well, first of all, again, I'm going on record to say I'm only coaching one athlete. When Kirani James retires, Harvey Glance retires. But do I see talent? Do I see talent in that area? Of course I do. Of course. I mean, the gene pool in Grenada is off the chart. I mean, you've had Aline Francique, you've had Kirani James, you've had Rondell Bartholomew, you've had Braylon Taplin, and now you got this young man out of Kansas, and I think the pipeline is there. But again, it's recognizing talent, it's putting your hand on it, and then it's a matter of developing it. And if you can't develop, you need to put it in the hands of people who can. But yeah, I think there's a combination. I think the Grenadian Olympic Committee, when not only did the athletes that I spoke to in 2014, Did they get the message? I was also talking to the Grenadian Olympic Organizing Committee as well as the Grenadian Olympic Committee about them having to grow, them having to be dedicated and committed and to the cause. And I think they've accepted that challenge. But you're right. I mean, you got some great coaches. You know that Coach Albert, who developed Kirani at a very young age, did a wonderful job. He's you know, his ability to coach has not gone away. He's in that area. You have a lot of field event coaches that have done great things, but it's still just a matter of putting your eye on the talent, making sure that they have the same kind of dedication, commitment, the sacrifices to be a champion or to be an Olympian or what have you. And great things can happen. But one is just recognizing and putting your hands on it. Two is developing it, making sure they get in the right hands of the people and coaches in Grenada. And then if they can have the necessary tools to work with athletes in that country, they need a good weight room. They need a good medical staff. They need a good nutritionist that can allow them to do all the things that other countries do to develop their athletes, then you got a good chance at making that happen. But until you get the facilities, you get the commitment to put your hands on people and being able to recognize a junior program or all commerce program. And I know they have track meets down there and you can see the potential. I've been there, I've seen it. But it's still, once you see it, you still got to be able to put your hands on it, put it in a program that will help you develop, and that takes money. And if you don't have the facilities to accommodate, then it's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Lana is saying completely agree. Grenada has a lot of talented athletes that are just waiting to be properly coached. I think Alana is still hoping that Coach Harvey Glance may change his mind, if he hasn't changed his mind from since then. Because you remember Shawnee Miller and others. Those are people that if you wanted to coach, you could have coached back then. Mike,
I've had the opportunity to coach countries, and I've had the opportunity to coach individuals, and again, the number one thing was to never try to take away from Kirani, and that was a promise I made to him and his family, and I will stick by that until he say that's it, coach.
Okay. Mike, in my opinion, this has been the best interview of all your interviews, and wish the Kirani Harvey team all success in the future. Then we have, let me see. Oh, yes, that's Raul Garcia Jr. Me personally, as a coach, never enjoyed indoors from the same perspective. I find that in the heat of the moment, too many athletes are told by their coaches to utilize almost like rugby and football / soccer type techniques in indoors that you can sometimes get away with because of the size of an indoor track, instead of just focusing on using the indoor meets to improve the actual track and field technique and execution. And then Vida Bruno Victor is saying, I'm sorry that I joined late, but I know that Harvey is an excellent motivator. But he's correct. A lot is needed to keep the athletes at a high level. He also gives good advice. Coach Glance, definitely.
Coach Vida is a jewel. She's a jewel, and she's also a good motivator. She tells it like it is.
She's a workhorse also. Yeah.
Yes.
We know he will give his best when it comes to Kirani. And Coach, so for the next 15 minutes, let's focus a lot on what is ahead for Kirani. As you said, he's opening his season next Saturday in Arizona. From that, we should be able to do some gauging in terms of what we can expect. But we know that so many challenges faced and so many uncertainties. Even this week, we have been hearing about whether or not the Olympic Games will go on. In fact, there are probably more Japanese in favor of canceling the Olympic Games than ever. And then even to the point of spectators, for example, you know. But despite that, as you said, the focus is on keeping Kirani in competition mode, you know.
Yes.
With all that's going around, and with all that's going around, how challenging is it for you to keep that focus and block off all the others?
Well, believe it or not, it's not challenging at all. It's just that you make a commitment, and then you either all in or you're not. And we have made the commitment to be all in. We can't control what we can't control. One thing is that unlike a lot of people, they feel like this COVID is going to go away. Well, it's not going away. It's something that we gotta, again, be coachable. We gotta listen to the scientists. We gotta continue to do what we do to make sure that we are ready. You know, up to this particular point, I can say we haven't had any setbacks. We found ways to try to make ends meet. The virus sets the stage, not individuals, and we got to respect that. You know, even with the games, it could change between now and July, but it also was so very close that we can't just give up now. We just got to keep pushing forward. We got to keep the right mindset as if we're going to have the games. We got to keep a plan. We got to stay in touch with his agent. Got to make sure that he has every option that we have in case something falls through. There's always got to be a backup plan. But right now, we are in full go mode for the Olympic Games. And until something set us back, we'll be listening. We'll keep our eyes open. We'll keep our ears open. And we'll continue to move forward. But yeah, it will be very difficult. Even the meet we're running in next week, you know, there's no spectators there either. So it's going to be a totally different flavor because it's all his motivation. It's all his drive. But we're going to try to get the best we can. And you know, Kirani is a self-motivated individual. I don't think he needs assistance in trying to get him ready to try to run fast, other than the fact that what we're doing, and when the gun goes off, he'll compete. If the competition is there, then the better, because we're not going to run away from anything.
Okay, I know you'll smile. Roger Duncan is saying, Coach Glance has made the required investment for citizenship. I hope he will be given his citizenship by investment. Harvey Glance, Grenadian.
I love the country of Grenada. It's been wonderful. It's been good to me. My wife and I went down to visit and thoroughly enjoyed it. No, actually we haven't been there, but yeah, I can remember doing an interview with ESPN, and I was bragging. Really, I was talking about Kirani and talking about his growth and the years he's come. And ESPN was doing an interview with me, and I think I was kind of overrunning my little segment. But the crowd was going crazy. They love hearing me talk about Kirani, and ESPN was telling me to cut it short. And my wife was back in the background. She was doing the cutthroat thing, saying, "That's it, wrap it up." And but I've always enjoyed the cheers from all the Grenadians. They've been very, very special. I always enjoyed my time there, and Roger and them have been just great hosts whenever I'm back there. It's great to see him. It's great to see that he has a voice still in this matter, and I look forward to looking him up along with everybody else whenever I get back into Grenada.
Right. You know, I don't want to leave without making this point there that, you know, when I was doing some research on you, Coach, I came around the part which says that you actually intended to pursue a career in public relations or journalism, you know, and you actually started off, you accepted a job, you know, more or less like an office job so that you get yourself more time to train. I think it was almost 4 hours a day, you know,
Yes.
4 hours, you know, a day training. And so that you can compete. Back then, I think it was in most of the Pan Am Games. It was 79, I think, like that. So, you know, but what made you change your mind from public relations and journalism to actually track and field and coaching?
It was called the outdoors. I did not like the office job. I mean, I enjoyed wearing suits because everybody who knows me know I like to dress. But I enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed people and meeting all the top executives and from around the country and around the world. And but it was something about the outdoors that I just love. And I was spending too much time inside the building. And I was out one day at a high school track. I was training for my 3rd Olympic team here in Arizona. This is what brought me back, because I always said that in my mind, if I ever retired, that Arizona would be a great consideration for retirement. I was out training for my 3rd Olympic team, and this is a very true story, and typical of how sometimes everything's kind of falling into your lap. I was doing stars one day with my coach out here, and Coach Thompson, and we had just finished the workout, and the head coach at Tempe High School was running his relay team. They was practicing, and I happened to look over to my left, and I was watching some of these changes in the relays. Well, the guys couldn't get it right for nothing in the world. And at that point in time, the coaching came out of me. I went over to the head coach at Tempe High School, and I said to him, I said, Coach, and he was a throws coach. He didn't know that much about relays and anything. He didn't have a strength coach. I said, Coach, I said, you mind if I give these guys a little advice about the relays? He said, oh yeah, please help me. Anything you give would be great. So I got the 4 guys together, and I had a little powwow with them, and I talked about the importance of running your borders. I showed them the inside lane versus and the outside lane, that the first runner should come on the inside, and the outside runner should be on the outside on 2nd leg and on 4th leg, and the inside on 1 and 3. And they adapted to that real quick. Then I talked about being religious to the marks. I said, the reason why you're having problems with your stick passing is because one of you leaving too soon or one of you leaving too late or what have you. I said, you got to be religious. Whatever steps you put down, you got to judge each other's speed. And I just really got into it. And next thing I know, I was coaching. I was volunteer coach over at the high school. Well, long story short, those young men, those 4 young men that I put my hands on, not only did they stop beating each other up with the stick or dropping the stick, those 4 athletes became state champions. And when I sit up in the stand and watch those guys become state champions, that point, I knew I was going to go into coaching, because I had this ability to reach and teach. But more importantly, it would be an outside job. And I didn't want to be in that desk to save my life. And that's what inspired me. So when I retired, that's what I ended up going back to Auburn University, served 1 year as a graduate assistant, and the next year I became the head coach, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. And let me see there. There is also you're actually a starter as well, Coach? You also did some starting?
Some what?
As a starter.
Oh yeah, yes. I tried a little bit of everything. I was officiating. I turned out to be an official. But I ended up starting track meets because I always felt like that starters were very unfair. And so I wanted to try to teach even people who want to go into the starting position how to start, because a lot of times the commands were so inconsistent. And I always feel like in order to be fair to everybody in the race, you should hold at least 2 to 2.5 seconds, because to allow people to get into their set position, to get focused, and to be ready to explode. And the reason why I did that was because in college, we used to go to a track meet down at Louisiana State University, LSU. And they had a starter down there that would train their athletes that he will shoot the gun fast. So they had a huge advantage of when you come into that building, their own athletes practice up under there. He would say, on your mark, set, pow. I mean, it was before he could almost get set out, he was shooting a gun. So those guys had a huge advantage working up under him. So I went down early and started watching some of his cadence in some of the earlier races. So whenever I would run against the LSU athletes, I would be ready. But I used to always describe him as so fast that when he gave his commands, he would say, on your marks, pow, set. The gun would actually fire before he got to the set position. That's how fast he was. So I just felt like I would do clinics on how to start, because, in all my years of starting, and it was a long, whether in junior high, high school, college, international, practice, what have you, I never false started in my life because I was so focused on listening to the gun. And that was the mainstay. And I love that afro.
Yeah, that was back then. The guys in the afro. So this was Harvey Glance. Harvey Glance completed the 100-200 double as a freshman at the 1976 NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Championship. He set a meet record of 10.16 in the 100 meters, and I think it's well noted. If I may just pull that up there, that the greatest sprinter in Auburn history. He was a 3-time Olympian, 1976 Olympic gold medal winner. While at Auburn, he won the NCAA championships in the 100 meters twice, in 1976 and 1977, and the 200 meters in 1976. During his career, he won 14 SEC championships and led the Tigers to successive SEC Indo championships from 1977 to 1979. He won 2 Pan American gold medals and a World Championship gold medal. From 1991 to 1996, he served as head coach at Auburn University. And in 1997, he became the men's head track coach at the University of Alabama until his retirement in 2011. Harvey Glance, final words from you as we get ready to pack away.
Well, thank you, Michael, for having me on the show. Again, I hope that everybody listening got something out of this, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I thoroughly have enjoyed being a part of the program. I want to thank again the country of Grenada, the Grenadian Olympic Committee, the Grenadian Organizing Committee, local organizing committee, all the great people of Grenada for trusting in me with their native son. And I hope there's joy and not disappointment in all the things that we've accomplished so far. And as you can very well tell, with all the accomplishments that Michael have just reeled off on me, please don't take the smile as weakness. I am not a weak person. You don't win those kind of titles being not competitive. So I'm very competitive. I want nothing but the best. And I promise you with your native son that I will do everything I possibly can to make sure he succeeds. God bless you. God keep you, and stay safe out there.
Okay, I want to thank you very much. And just again, that Kirani opens his season rather next weekend in Arizona. Exactly where in Arizona?
Grand Canyon University and right downtown Phoenix.
Okay, Grand Canyon University, downtown Phoenix in Arizona. Thank you very much. All the best, Coach. Special thanks also to Dr. Tammy Williams for being an inspiration on the side. Thank you very much. And all those who have contributed to the program this afternoon. It has been a pleasure, Coach, and I hope we can do it again sometime in the future.
Godspeed.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
All right, then. So, folks, as you heard it there, that's Coach Harvey Glance, all the way in Mesa in Arizona. And he, no doubt, providing all the information regarding Kirani James and his preparation for the 2021 season. But we got an overview of Harvey Glance. Who is Harvey Glance? The coach he is, the mentor, everything that he has brought to Kirani James. As we have said before, that if you know who Kirani was and who Kirani is now, you will see that sort of difference, the way he speaks, the way he dresses, everything about Kirani, one of the things that, someone told me some time ago, and I made reference, I said, that is Harvey Glance, the on time, Kirani's on time, he speaks with authority and his eloquence and, all that. And I said, that is Harvey Glance, Harvey Glance does not make joke with these things. And I think it's more about Kirani James, not just as an athlete, but as an individual. And I think that is the important part. Thank you once again, folks. And wow, there's some. So yes, thanks, Guy. That was awesome. And looking forward. Yes, Sammy, no doubt. You will have much more, and we'll be following Kirani's exploits for 2021, along with other athletes. There are some other athletes, I think, who are based in Arizona. So no doubt with the information from Coach Glance there, most likely, but I doubt there will be no spectators. So we'll have to monitor the results. Thank you very much, folks. Don't forget to join us on Thursday at 8 o'clock in the evening for another of our program, Talk Sports, and then next Saturday at 1 o'clock for another edition of the Saturday Sports Special. Until then, I want to wish you a pleasant weekend.